Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Praise the name of the Lord. I am Robert Benonjurua, the Rule of Law Officer in charge of litigation at the Uganda Law Society. We are very excited to come to you live from the Uganda Law Society for today's Radical New Bar 44th edition of the weekly press and public engagement, in which we engage in topical issues that are affecting the society and are of concern to the citizenry. We are very happy to have the members that are physically present. We are also very excited to have members online who we send our kind regards and thank you for making time online amidst your busy schedules. Today, which is a Friday, we must also bring to your attention, we are having an exceptional day because we had prior discussions with the different panelists who are going to be introduced and you will get to know. But we spoke and it was not possible to have these sessions or this session yesterday on Thursday when we always do the same between 11 and 1 p.m. We are always cognizant of members' time and schedules, but today we were requested and we had management decisions about it being on a Friday because we never want to leave this obligation to go without being tackled, because it's our mandate to be very critical in as far as matters concerning the members, concerning the public, concerning the country are concerned. And our role as a society in the mandate given unto us in the Uganda Law Society Act under Section 3, C and D are very clear to enable access to justice and create awareness amongst the society and the members. Today we have a very, very interesting topic to discuss, which I'm very sure is going to intrigue all our minds and have these discussions. Let's have the discussion. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we are all experiencing in this period of time, especially in as far as the general elections are concerned. So many things have been said. A lot of things have been watched along in the social media. And today we are discussing a topic, UNEB, National Council for Higher Education, the Electoral Commission, guardians of democracy or enablers of privilege. This topic, of course, is for us to rethink about matters concerning UNEB, matters concerning Electoral Commission, as well as National Council of Higher Education, in which we're having parties that are intertwined, that see to it that accreditation and qualifications for purposes of electoral inclusion are concerned. So we are asking ourselves very, very critical questions. Who gets to run for office? And we shall be hearing from different panelists that are going to help us to understand better what is required and how it is supposed to be done. And usually what happens thereafter is we have questions and answers between the public and the panelists, and for that matter, would like to start the day. We're going to have a very brief program. We have opening prayer that is going to come from within us, and then welcome remarks from the CEO of Uganda Law Society that will be read out because she is out of the country on official duty. That is Madame Christine Awori, and then thereafter we shall delve into the topic for discussion. Like I said, it's UNEB, NCHE, Electoral Commission, Guardians of Democracy or Enablers of Privilege, and thereafter we shall have a session for question and answer. We shall hear from the members and we shall be asking questions unto the panelists, and thereafter we shall have a brief recap of the events that are upcoming as far as the Uganda Law Society is concerned. We have quite a number of activities lined up for us, especially in the remaining few weeks towards the end of the year, and thereafter we shall have a vote of thanks and closing remarks. As of now, I would like to request that we humble ourselves and receive a prayer from one Francis, who is within the building and is going to bless us and usher us into the day so as to start our day. I thank you.
Thank you. My job is to to pray, and then we can start the day. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for protection. We thank you for opportunity that you brought us from different places, and we are here right now. Father, as we start the day, we pray for your wisdom. We pray for your knowledge and understanding, that whatever is going to be discussed here, we pray it will be for the good of this nation. We pray that everyone, whoever is on their way coming, we pray that you protect them. You protect them so that they can reach here safely. Father, we put the nation in your hands and everyone who is here. In the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much, Francis, for the prayer. Now we are already sure that the Lord is in this presence, and would like to request that the head of department, Rule of Law, Ms. Afarapio, come along and render the message from the CEO, who, as I said, is indisposed to receive welcome remarks. Ms. Apio, thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert. Professor Mambutsya Ndebesa, Political Science Don, Makerere University. Council Charity Ahimbisiwe, Executive Director, Electoral Laws and Governance Institute. Council John Jet Tumwebazem, MP aspirant Maogola North Constituency, who is joining us online. Council members joining us online. All members of Uganda Law Society, both physically present and online. Members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Apio Afra. I am the head rule of law, Uganda Law Society. I am representing the CEO, Ms. Christina Wari, who is currently away on official duties. My chief task this morning is to read the welcome remarks, and I shall proceed to do that verbatim. On behalf of the Uganda Law Society, I welcome you to the 44th Rnblive Weekly Press and Public Engagement. Today we shall be discussing the topic UNEB, NCHE, Electoral Commission, Guardians of Democracy or Enablers of Privilege. As a country, we are steadily moving towards the 2026 general elections, and it is very important that our democratic values are upheld together with institutional integrity and commitment to equality before the law. Elections are not defined by the polling day alone. They are influenced by institutions that govern the process before, during, and after citizens cast their vote. Today's discussion challenges us to reflect on the role of the three critical institutions: Uganda National Examinations Board, National Council for Higher Education, and the Electoral Commission. In the past week, questions have emerged about academic verification, candidate eligibility, and whether these mechanisms promote fairness or they create barriers that privilege some while excluding others. As Uganda Law Society, our mandate compels us to safeguard the rule of law, promote access to justice, and protect rights enshrined in our Constitution. It is therefore our responsibility to interrogate these processes and ensure that the forthcoming electoral cycle reflects transparency, accountability, and equal opportunity for all Ugandans. I want to thank our speakers for accepting our invitation. I also thank all our members and the public for joining us, for joining the conversation. Your voices are essential. Through dialogue like this, we move closer to an electoral process that is truly just, credible, and reflective of the aspirations of the people of Uganda. Thank you, and I wish you a fruitful discussion.
Thank you so much, Ms. Afarapio, for delivering the message. Thank you so much, Madam CEO. We have received your message. It was very warm, as it has always been. We're wishing you all the best in your endeavors out of the country, as well as while you watch us, because we know you're following us very critically online, alongside the council members that have given us the blessing to be here. as well as the members generally. And we have, as we have gotten to know, we have three very distinguished speakers, two of which are in the house, and we are very excited and we can't wait to hear from them. We also heard that the third individual, Advocate John Jet Tumweboze, is going to join us online, which is of course one of our tenets, digital transformation. It is common practice that we hear from those that cannot necessarily make it on physically to hear us online. We know that he's also following us. The IT team is ready to engage him when it is time, but he's also requested to join, which I know he is, as he listens out to us. And we're going to straight away delve into the topic because it is as hot as it feels. And we know, as the CEO has told us, it's a very critical time. It's a time when these institutions determine who participates in an election, who gets accredited, whose documents, either from a foreign university or a foreign institution, get accredited in Uganda so as to be able to participate in an election. And of course, we've heard a lot over time about the questions that are raised about different aspirants. You know, there's been members of parliament who have claimed to have studied out of the country. We don't know, of course, because we're not in, and the NCHE is meant to accreditate or maybe evaluate that document to see whether it also comes to be in the aspect of documents agreeable to make a person eligible. We've had such scenarios, and of course those documents run to the Electoral Commission, which uses them to gauge the eligibility of an intending aspirant. And here we are with so many questions, and we don't want to have the answers to them away from listening from our very distinguished guests. And before we go any further, we'd like to introduce the first individual who's going to break the ice and give us a sneak peek of what is expected from the different panelists. We have an executive director of Electoral Laws and Governance Institute, who has 7 years of experience in elections, election observation, and conducting voter mobilization campaigns. She is a strong proponent for electoral rights and good governance. She has observed over 15 by-elections and 2 national elections in Uganda, that is from 2016 to 2021, and was part of the observation team of one 2017 Kenyan election. We remember how that one went, so you can expect that she's going to give us a good feel of what transpired at that level. Then also at a country level, she has promoted voting rights by advocating these rights as enshrined in the Ugandan constitution. She has participated in a number of electoral reform analyses and pushed for policy change as one of the top gap measures to the promotion of free, fair, credible elections in Uganda. To this effect, before the 2021 elections, she published an article entitled "Transparency in Vote Tallying: Key Ingredient for Free, Fair, and Credible Elections." Ladies and gentlemen, to open the day of panelists, please welcome with me Miss Charity Ahimbisibwe. Thank you so much. This way. This way, please. This way. Yeah, we're going to present from here. We need to have the whole world watch you. I hope this is okay.
I thought we were going to stay seated. Thank you very much. A very good morning to all our viewers online and the platform of citizens that are in this room. A good morning to Professor Ndebesa Mwambusia, and I'm excited to be at the Radical New Bar. Why radical? Because RNB symbolizes people who want to put us back on track. The country has gone off track in many forms and many formats. One of them being that we have a lot of impunity, people choosing to do wrong and be proud to do that wrong. So I'm happy to be part of the conversation at RNB. But I will try to stick to what our topic is, and the topic By the way, all protocol observed. There is council online, and there is also the CEO. Thank you for your good insights this morning. And they were presented by Madame Apio. I liked what she said. This podium is a bit down. I'm used to the ones up, but I will be okay. I will adjust. So the question is, guardians of democracy or enablers of privilege? That is what we're going to tinker with today. Are the institutions of the Electoral Commission, National Council for Higher Education, and the institution of UNEB, are they enablers of democracy, or they are enablers of privilege? So I'd like to start by reflecting on what is democracy. For me, Larry Diamond does explain what democracy is, and he puts it in 4 facets. Number 1, it is the respect for the rule of law. Once there is respect for the rule of law, then there is democracy. As to whether we have respect for rule of law in Uganda, that is a contestable question. And I have no doubt that there are many times we have seen when the law has not been respected, when there hasn't been rule of law. 2, the second facet that Adam talks about, Larry Diamond talks about, is the question of civic participation. To Larry Diamond, citizens must participate in the process very openly. You see, Article 29 of the Constitution does provide that citizens have a right to opine, they have a right to associate. That right to opine and associate are key tenets on which elections are hinged. That your opinion does count during an electoral process. That the opinion of the political leaders should count in an electoral process. But how many times have we seen opinions being curtailed in electoral processes? I think there are many times when we have seen people being stopped for expressing their opinions or for even associating with particular political groupings. We just saw what happened to the National Unity Platform in Arua, where there was said young people were arrested for what? For smashing cars of the police. As to whether it is true that it is the National Unity Platform youngsters who smashed those cars, it is a claim that is still lying out there. Until it is proved in court, it is really hearsay. And for me, that's when rule of law comes in handy to promote democracy, that the citizens cannot participate except they are assured of their participation in an environment where the rule of law is promoted. That is the second facet. The third facet is credible, free, fair elections. Uganda has never had credible, free, fair elections from 1980. In 1980, after the election, President Museveni took to the bush because he said the election was not free, fair, and credible. In 2001, in 1996, we did not have a court ruling as we all know it. But in 2001, when the court sat, they said there were a lot of anomalies, a lot of ill practices in the process, but they were not substantial to overturn the election. Of course, that is legal language, and I will let it lie. In 2006, we were back to court. And in 2011, we didn't go to court because Besigye chose to do what we call walk to work. In 2016, Amama Mbabazi took us back to court. And in all these court rulings, you will see a thread of what the judges said. None of those things have we done to ensure that the next election that we conduct is credible. That is an indictment on us as a society. So are you seeing the interplay between the rule of law, civic participation, free and fair, credible elections? There is a delicate interplay between those facets, which Larry Diamond puts across. The last issue that Larry Diamond talks about is the respect for human rights. Now, if you see the way Chagulanyi's supporters were arrested in Mbara, was there respect for human rights there, where we saw breasts hanging out and everything, people beaten without care for who they are? There's supposed to be respect for you as a person. First and foremost, our law assumes that you're innocent until proven guilty. So why are you being undressed? Why are you being taken like you're a chicken thief? Why is there no respect for you, for your opinion, for you to associate? Why should you be taken the way you were being handled in Mbara, the supporters of Chagulanyi in Mbara and Chirhura? Why were they treated like that? Why were they beaten in Nkoni, sticks? Why were you hitting them with sticks? For what? You see, so those questions then raise the fundamental question that we are discussing today on guardians of democracy or enablers of privilege. And now we sink into the issue. How many minutes do I have? 5, 10, 15, 20, thanks. So I have done my 5. I will proceed with the 15. So if we look at Fort Portal, Jocelyn Karunji of Fort Portal City, she was a woman MP. She was denied a chance to become a woman MP for what? For lack of academic qualifications. Tadeo Amanyire, Fort Portal City Central MP. He was also denied an opportunity to be nominated for lack of academic papers. Robert Mugabe of Chitagwenda, that one there is a court case where his opponent was demanding for his academic documents because he said he was sure the man didn't go to school. Now, I find it unfortunate that in the 21st century, we still engage with questions of academic documents. Because it's so clear, if you sat S4, you sat S4. You have friends who went to school with you. If you sat S6, you sat S6. I mean, I cannot claim I went to Nabsunsa Girls' School and no one in Nabsunsa saw me there. Nobody. Then where did I study from? And there's nobody who can say she's actually my OG. Really, this thing really bothers me. It bothers me that as a country, we waste time on small things and we let the big dogs lie. But let us try and give total attention to this question of academic papers. And I guess that is why the law is succinct on what are supposed to be your academic papers before you choose to stand for public office in Uganda. So Article 81C, the whole Article 80 actually talks about qualifications for a member of parliament. But I will just keep picking out a few things that I find interesting about this article. And of course, it is read along with sections 41C and sections 30C of the Parliamentary Elections Act. They prescribe the minimum academic qualifications for a member of parliament. And what are they? 1, you're supposed to be a citizen of Uganda. 2, you should be a registered voter. 3, you should have completed a formal minimal education of advanced standard of education or its equivalent. Now, it goes ahead to describe, Article 80, describes who then cannot stand to be a member of parliament. 1 of unsound mind, if you've been holding an office whose responsibility has a connection to the conduct of an election, where you were a traditional cultural leader, in line with Article 246(6), Clause 6, you have been an undischarged bankrupt. Of course, the law there says you've been declared bankrupt and you're not discharged, but for us, we shorten it, undischarged bankrupt. Of course, every legal brain knows who is an undischarged bankrupt. And then if you're serving a sentence of death or imprisonment, and for me, this is where it is interesting. If you're serving a sentence of death or imprisonment exceeding 9 months, and it has been imposed by a competent court of law. But it is not if you have a civil suit and you have an option of paying a fine. If you were convicted in a civil case and you can pay a fine, you can still stand for office. The law does allow you. And the law also allows you as long as you've not been serving for longer than 9 months. So now today we look at specifically the question of academic papers. And I want to look carefully at what is the mandate of the National Council for Higher Education, what is the mandate of UNEB, and finally, why was the Electoral Commission saying what it was saying? Number one, Electoral Commission said, if you do not have your certificate, your S6 certificate, A-level, or a higher degree like a university degree from a recognized university in Uganda, then your documents have to be verified by the National Council for Higher Education, which is the institution mandated to accredit universities and other programs leading to the award of a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a doctoral degree, or postgraduate diplomas and certificates. Now, those who had degrees, you had to produce your original copies and photocopies. You had to have the original and photocopies. Of course, for me, that is already an area of contention, because even in courts of law, what is admissible? Secondary evidence is admissible. So photocopies are admissible. If they are admissible, then they should be as good as me providing it. I don't even know where my original certificates of Makerere are. I don't know, but I know that I have them. I have my certified copies. So does it mean if I produced my certified copies, the Electoral Commission would stop me from standing? I found that, unfair to the candidates. I think what should be emphasized going forward is that as long as your academic papers are there, you have a photocopy, you have a certified copy, then you can stand for public office, because that is what the law tells us. I just read for you that Article 80. Now, Article 80 just provides for the area of its equivalent now being determined by the National Council for Higher Education. All candidates who had qualifications in the previous election could not use them in this election. They were required by the Electoral Commission to submit new, fresh academic documents. Now, for that one, the Electoral Commission did defend themselves in this way. They said, look, 5 years is a long time. You might have given me an S6 certificate last electoral cycle, and now you have a degree. So for you to give me fresh qualifications is for me to see how far have you gone with your academic life. That one is fair, isn't it? So that one is a fair one as to why they were demanding for those documents. And then they were being guardians of democracy. They were not just playing along as our title does call them. And I think now I'm running down my time. We also have the issue of all candidates. Okay, that one I have handled. If you had a degree within East Africa colleges, you also could be verified by the Electoral Commission. You didn't need to go to National Council for Higher Education. But what I found unfair was for UNEB to demand that for you to get your documents, let's assume your documents got burnt in fire, or they disappeared, because things happen. You put your documents somewhere and you even forget where you put it. When you ask me for my O-level certificate, I know where it is now because I recently used it. But I had been looking for it for a very long time. It is possible that people who went to O-level 40 years ago or even 50 years ago don't know where that document is. And you might want UNEB to give you that document. This was how it was required for you to get that document. Number one, you are supposed to write to the Executive Secretary of UNEB. Number two, you were required to pay $300,000 for verification for O-level, and then $300,000 for verification for A-level. So you imagine that you had to pay 600,000 in addition to the nomination fees you've already paid at Electoral Commission. So Electoral Commission requires me as a woman to pay 3 million to stand as a candidate. Then I have to look for 600,000. Then I have to look for money to go and campaign and ask for votes from people. I have to look for money to print posters. People, just how fair can that be? Is that enabling democracy? Is that enabling participation, or it is curtailing participation? If I am a woman and I have lost my documents, how dare you think I'm going to think that these academic documents now should make my life impossible to live because I want a political office? If we want to be enablers of democracy, then we also have to be fair in the way we conduct these issues. If I sat UNEB, I went through the whole academic process, why am I paying 300? For what? What are you verifying? Don't we have computer systems? Can't you just go into a computer system, enter my details, my name, and it brings up a number, whatever it is that is associated with me? This is a problem that we are having when we are going digital. As a country, we need to improve these processes to allow for more participation. This money was non-refundable. So was that consistent? Was it transparent? I don't think it was consistent, transparent. I think it was transparent because they put out the information for all who cared. Now, the question of academic documents being verified by National Council for Higher Education, there are people who have gone abroad and studied small certificates, you know. When you're out there, when I lived in London, there used to be small colleges around. You just go to a college and get a certificate for yourself. Because you've been busy, sometimes you're not busy, you have some time on you and you want a certificate. So you get that certificate. So when you come back to Uganda, you want to make it appear like, oh my God, it is gigantic. Sometimes those certificates are not worth their salt. And there are people in Uganda who have spent time sitting in class and reading 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and for you, you're just going to sit there 6, 9 months and come back with a qualification and you want it to be equivalent to what I studied in Uganda. I think that is not fair. So the fairness is the National Council for Higher Education should be able to weigh these qualifications and see, are they as credible as the standard that has been set in Uganda. That was one of the thresholds as to why the National Council had to look at these documents. However, Uganda being Uganda with its corruption, those who had money still got away with it. If you had money, you went and paid, you got a qualification. If you had money, you still walked into National Council, talked to a few people who you knew, and you got a qualification. Those who didn't have money, then their qualifications could not be accredited. In that instance, is that fair? Is that equal? Is that in tandem with Article 21, which says that we are all equal before and under the law? No, it is not. And so if it is not in tandem with that, then are the institutions of National Council for Higher Education and UNEB being guardians of democracy or tools that have torn the democratic spectrum of Uganda? Now, candidates were also required to make sure that their nominations this accreditation happened 2 months before nomination. It were not up to them to determine how long National Council was taking to verify their academic documents. Some of them were delayed there. That is why we had petitions, over 70% petitions at the Electoral Commission that had to be cleared ahead of nomination process. Meaning that going forward, my thought is that every Ugandan who thinks they want to participate in electoral processes, let's not spend time on academic documents. Make sure your documents are in good order before the next electoral cycle. Go to school. If you have S6, well and good. Go back, get a degree. If you have a degree and you want to get a master's, go ahead. You can at least tell the Electoral Commission that I'm pursuing a master's, meaning you already have a degree bagged. And if you've gone to schools abroad and you do have qualifications that equal to a certain a certificate in Uganda or a diploma or the advanced level, let it also be demonstrated. Let us be men and women of integrity. Let's not hide behind the blanket of verification of academic documents and fail our own democracy. I choose to submit like this now on this topic. Our institutions, these named ones, National Council, UNEB, and Electoral Commission, guardians of democracy. To some extent, they are guardians of democracy. And that is to the extent of ensuring a fairly transparent process for all candidates that are participating and creating a level ground for everyone to have a minimum qualification as per the law in Article 80 and the sections of the Parliamentary Act that I told you about. Those were sections 41C and section 30C of the Parliamentary Elections Act. In as far as that is, they are guardians. But they are also enablers of privilege when it comes to those who have more money, when it comes to the requirements of how much should be paid for verification to happen. It means that only those who have the privilege of standing as candidates in elections in Uganda, which then means that the question of civic participation would not be upheld. I submit.
Thank you so much, Ms. Charity. That has been a very, very elaborate discussion of the topic. You have elucidated so much that has set the ground very, very, very well for the next discussions going forward, especially from the next discussant and for the public as well as the members, for purposes also of learning. As you have realized, you have spoken so many things, and we appreciate your association with the Radical New Bar. We are back on track, surely, and you're really one of our very own. So we thank you so much, and you're always welcome. This is home. We want to deal with people like you. So keep smiling and keep fighting. Thank you so much. You've spoken about the critical things here. My take home for me has been the interconnectivity of the institutions that we're talking about, that we cannot purport to participate in an election within a cycle without these institutions. And the fact that we must go through them because they are also created as of statute is very critical. So how they deal with us or how they deal with the aspirants, you spoke of individuals, Jocelyn Karunji, you spoke of Tadeo Amanyire and Robert Mugabe, who were denied participation because of academic qualifications, but the criteria and the process is the one that is now very unfortunate, that they didn't get any part of their feelings and or requirements satisfied. The truth of the matter is, when you define democracy according to Larry Diamond, it leaves a lot to be desired, because the breakdown, those facets, now helps us to realize that we either ticking or we are crossing. And I don't want to imagine what anybody else out there is thinking, because the facets are critical. Respect for rule of law, that is what the Uganda Law Society does, and it continue to do that, because I mean, we can't do without rule of law in a country. And the fact that the 1980 predicament as to why the current government went to the bush is very critical for us to reminisce. And, you know, I'm sure a professor will give us more information about that. Civic participation, we're having a lot that is being curtailed. As you spoke, I come from Arua. I got a lot of information about how the predicament out there affected the people. Up to now, there's still psychological torture that people are going through from what happened in Arua. And recently, just I think yesterday but one, because the principal, that is the NCHE president, is in West Nile. He was in the news. I found he was lamenting about the occurrences. So we want to thank you for setting the ground, and we know that you've mentioned figures, 70% of petitions at the EC. That is already indicting. It's glaring to have such figures. The participation amount of money for candidates, 3,600,000, campaign materials, printing, and making busy Nasser Road is very, very high, and yet we're talking about an S6 qualification bare minimum, which of course also speaks into the finances of the individual. So a lot has to be looked into, and we never want to stop this awareness from coming out, because very many people do not know that these things can be discussed, and these articles and these laws can either be amended if brought to the fore, that they are not necessarily being fair, because it's supposed to be a credible, free, and fair election as the fourth facet of the definition of democracy, as you put. So your take home on your definition of whether the institutions are guardians of democracy or enablers of privilege is, of course, as you've put it, wanting. It is to an extent a guardian of democracy, but also to a bigger extent, as we was being taught, quite wanting in that area, because of the fact that there's quite a lot required that has not been synchronized. We want to thank you so much for your presentation. Please, a round of applause for her. She's been so awesome, and we want to use her presentation as a foundation for the next speech. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. The program was supposed to be that Miss Charity sets for us the ground, and then we hear from Advocate Jet John Tumwebaze, who, as we earlier on alluded, is joining us online for different reasons. He is also an aspirant for the Maogola North constituency in the upcoming elections, and you'll of course know that the social media has been awash about his predicament in regard to the academic qualifications of his opponent. We shall hear more from him. He is supposed to be joining us shortly, but I need to also notify the members and our distinguished guests and panelists that we did reach out to the institutions we're talking about. It is not going to be said that we did not, because it's useless to have a discussion about them without themselves. So we wrote out to each of them, and for one reason or another, we did receive response in, of course, the negative, and we took it in stride. We took it in stride because it doesn't stop the discussion from going on. I'm sure Miss Charity will be called sometime, and by God's grace, if you have a representative from whichever institution is in question, you will take it on from there, and we shall follow you, because, I mean, what else can we do if we have invited and they have not come? Nonetheless, we also don't want to point fingers, because it is a busy schedule that we need to appreciate. They are very busy, the Electoral Commission, for obvious reasons, and then, of course, NCHE, and we know that they're following us, because the Radical Nuba reaches everywhere. We've created a platform for people to speak, and it's from this house that we speak, and if we can't be heard physically, we shall go online. And you can be sure you're following us online, on X, on YouTube, and on Facebook. Kindly continue to be locked in. We would like to know from the IT if Advocate Tumwebaze is online. I'm told you're online, Advocate John Jet Tumwebaze. We are very honored to have you here with us. We know you are in a very busy time, but to preserve a few minutes for us means a lot, and would like to immediately engage you. But as we engage you, we'd just like for the members to appreciate who you are. We are very sure of you. Your name doesn't need introduction, because you have been through the corridors of the High Court and all courts thereunder, including that of the Supreme Court. He's a graduate from Makerere University and has been a practicing advocate for over 18 years. As a law student at Makerere University, he famously sought redress from the High Court of Uganda, seeking a judicial review to quash the decision of the University Tribunal regarding the results of an election. So you can be sure he's been in the elections runnings from the time he was a university student. And this case right now is a locus classicus case on judicial reviews under the laws of Uganda. Currently, he is a partner at Kampala Associated Advocates, one of the biggest law firms in the country, and he is a member of the litigation department. So I'm looking up to him because I am a litigation officer, and you can be sure that we have spoken about this before, and he has guided me so well. He is also a partner in the employment, property, and land conveyancing practices, and he's established himself as a formidable litigator and a skilled negotiator with extensive experience in property and land conveyance law, as well as banking and finance. He is currently, as I earlier on said, vying for the seat of MP Maogola North constituency in Sembabule district. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like for you to join me to welcome Advocate John Jet Tumwebaze to the stage to share his insights on the topic, as we are all aware. Yes, Counsel, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Do you get me loud and clear?
Loud and clear, Counsel. Please proceed.
Okay. If I break off, it's because I have intermittent network. I'm in the villages campaigning. But well, I just climbed a small anthill, so I'm going to give you 5 minutes, gentlemen and ladies.
It is well.
I hope you understand. I always give the Law Society all my time. I have given the last 20 years of the best of my life to the Society, and I will continue to do so.
We appreciate it.
But please accept my 5 minutes today.
We appreciate. Please proceed. Thank you.
First of all, the introduction was good. I am a partner at KAA. All of you guys know me. I have thrown in nearly 20 years. I am also a member of the Uganda Law Society, as you all know. I have decided to take a sabbatical out of legal practice and start politics. But I will be here for a very short. Be worried, I will be back. I want to do one term and get out. Now, the topic here is I think did you call it the questionable academic documents?
It's not necessarily questionable because it's a topic for discussion, but as long as you find there is a question, therefore it becomes questionable. So it's subjective depending on the bearer.
Now, in my case, my candidate does not even have questionable academic documents. He has no academic documents at all. So they are not even questioned. There is even nothing to question. There is nothing at all. There is interesting is that when you are getting nominated, in my case here, one of the candidates filled out a form called Statement Under Oath by a person to be nominated under parliamentary candidate. And this is under the Parliamentary Elections Act. And he did indicate that I have under Section 5, I have the following educational qualifications for standing for member for parliamentary election. He says, A, I have Advanced Certificate of Education, USCA, meaning he completed Senior 6. Then he says, I have Uganda Certificate of Education, UCA. Surprisingly, he never attached any certificate. After stating under oath that he has certificates, he never attached any. Then what did he attach? And for me, our institutions are simply under the spotlight. I want you to shine lights on our institutions. The Uganda National Examination Board, call it UNEB, he attached a letter of verification of results. Now, in that letter of verification of results, UNEB claims, because when you are verifying anything or certifying anything, you must attach it. UNEB should have attached his certificates, but they don't exist. So a person who has no certificates, what is your evidence of completion? Because the law says you must have completed Senior 6 or its equivalent. The person doesn't have it. But most interesting, UNEB's letter has a disclaimer. UNEB says the board is not responsible for the identity of the candidate. What does that mean? That the man who has not submitted his certificates, there is no evidence of completion. What he has brought as evidence of completion are letters of verification. Those you as lawyers understand what a disclaimer means in law. The board is not responsible for the identity of the candidate. But that is not the problem. That is a problem, but the biggest problem is that you have a candidate who at O level failed history and got 9, but he offered the same subject at HSC. I don't know how that happens. You have the same candidate who failed Christian religious education with a 9, but offered the same at HSC. So I don't know how it happens. We've written to UNEB, UNEB is dilly-dallying. We have written to the Electoral Commission, they are dilly-dallying. But that tells you about the management of elections in this country. It does not surprise you that most of the people who use forged academic documents are thrown out of parliament after government has spent billions of shillings to organize those elections. Then they spend billions more to organize by-elections. I think we need to amend the law and make sure the guys who engage in this fraud pay back that money to the taxpayer. You have a big problem going on. So, while you guys discuss the questionable academic documents, in my case, we have absent academic documents, completely absent. I don't know anybody who completes anything, even a simple course. I'm sure even at the end of the day today, you are going to have an attendance record. And I hope you give us our CRO points for attending this. At least there will be evidence that you have completed today's session. This one has no evidence of completing anything. But that's where we are. Until you join politics, you don't understand the murky waters of politics. Because for us, we are used to a structured way of doing things as practicing advocates. So for me, that's my problem. We will, of course, we have not seen the tail end of it. We have some of our colleagues studying these documents and would advise, because me now, I am not in the right state of mind to advise. I am always campaigning day in, day out. But thank you for hosting me. I don't know whether I can add anything for now, but the members can debate that. You can debate that. I want to thank the RNB team and our president, Sema Kade. I'm sure he's listening in, my OB from SMAC, my young brother there, and the vice president for steering the team in the unfortunate absence of our president. I want to thank you.
Thank you so much for that very, very short period of time. And of course, we have been listening into a victim of the processes. That one has come from the horse's mouth, and none other than an advocate who has, as we said, over 18 years or 20 years of experience. So you can imagine what a person at a lower caliber of Advocate John Jet Tumwebaze is going through, if such a person of his caliber is already going through some little bit of turmoil and what you want to call impunity, for lack of a better word, because we are going to speak these words. It's not going to help us to try to, cover them, glove them up, and yet in reality, a person has taken a statement of oath and has claimed to have document X, Y, and Z, and in actual sense, when asked for them, as you know, we've all, either gone to school or are knowledgeable that whenever you want to certify, you have to attach either a copy or an original. At Makerere, where a professor is from, when you're going to certify documents, at least from my experience, you are mandatorily asked to leave behind your original. They ask you to submit it with the photocopy. Your original must be apart. And that is supposed to be either, one, an assurance that you will find it, and two, they need to be sure of what they're certifying. So for you to go to UNEB and, not attach any original document or even a photocopy, like Charity was saying, you don't necessarily have to have an original, and you don't attach any, and then you expect that UNEB will give you something is very, very much to be desired. But also, you have mentioned, Advocate, you have mentioned UNEB, of course, participated in writing that letter. And we cannot run away from that fact. So the responsibility has to fall somewhere. You participate in writing it, and then you put that disclaimer. A disclaimer for those of the general public is to say, we are not fully responsible for this, what we are writing, because we cannot necessarily guarantee the identity of the candidate. And that is a shame. It falls short of professionalism from my perspective, and of course from council's perspective. I'm not going to do so much comments on getting F9s from O level for you to participate and take it on in A level. You very well know, for those who went through the school, that when you get an F9, then of course it also means that you can't afford to do it in A level. So if your senior 4 is reading F9, chances are you're supposed to repeat that class and get something better. You get a pass, because that's what a pass is supposed to mean. You've tried your best. You may not get a credit nor a distinction, but you can get a pass. That pass just means that, you know, you tried your best and you can afford to maybe do better in A level. But if you have an F9 and then you have it for A level, a lot to be said. Then the dilly-dallying part of it, the timelines that Charity talked about, the discussions are intertwined. The timelines and the critical time that is required. You have 2 months, and yet there's no response. Yesterday, but one we had, there was an aspirant who camped at UNEB offices for reason that his results for the letters that he had written had never been responded. I've forgotten, I think he comes from the West. James Atwine, yes, James Atwine. He camped with his supporters with the placards and, you know, wondering why UNEB has not responded to his letters. But you can also imagine that, well, whereas they're busy, somebody has put in time to write. I cannot say it is as simple as getting a paper to write. I mean, you have some internal processes, but you need to be cognizant of the fact that a candidate or a willing aspirant is in time. So we don't want to say much. We want to thank you so much, Advocate John Jet Tumwebaze. We know you're running. We wish you the best. May the Lord be with you, cover you in your endeavors, and guarantee you victory so that you can keep your word by doing 1 term. We shall hold you against that 5 years from now. But for whatever reason, for now, all the best and good luck. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still on the same course, guardians of democracy or enablers of privilege. And we want to take it a notch higher and listen to a very distinguished individual who doesn't need a lot of introduction, because if you've been in and around Uganda, you have either watched him speak over the TV set, or you've had him present through the radio, and you have had him criticize, you've had him give flowers where necessary, and very importantly, because, well, we are in a democracy, we are trying to see that the rule of law is upheld. This is an individual who is a senior lecturer at Makerere University College of Humanities and Social Sciences. He is widely recognized as a public intellectual and political critic. He has contributed to national debates through his work in academia, research, and media engagement. I know the media are very good friends with him. He is regularly invited as a panelist on political talk shows and policy roundtables and academic fora, offering critical insights on political events and legislative developments. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me Professor Mwambusa Ndebesa.
Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you all who are around here and those who are online. I am privileged and honored to come and share with you issues to do with the electoral process in Uganda. And it is very pertinent because it can shape our future in many respects than one. I'm not a lawyer. The nearest I was a lawyer is when I applied to do law. And in our days, there were no private universities, so there was only Makerere University when I joined the university. And they admitted less than 100 students. I didn't appear among those. But anyway, when I don't talk law, you know my background. I am privileged again to say I am here before the Uganda Law Society. So you are a society of law. Civilization cannot take place unless there is rule of law. So it is very important that you are a society of law and laws. And I am told you are also radical new bar people. I don't know whether the tensions that we are listening to and we are debating is not because there is a new wine in old bottles. When there is new wine in old bottles, as Jesus put it, then the bottles may have to break or there will be tension. And I suspect that is why there is tension. There seems to be somewhere, somehow, new wine that is bottled in old wine skins. In my opinion, now I'm venturing into issues of law. I am risking actually. In my opinion, law is not necessarily supposed to be neutral. I don't know what you do in the School of Laws in respect of jurisprudence. The law, in my opinion, should be fair, not necessarily neutral. I agree with the late Bishop of South Africa, Anglican Bishop Desmond Tutu, when he said that when the foot of an elephant is on the back of a rat, and you say you are neutral, the rat will not understand you. Can I repeat it? When the foot of an elephant is placed on the back of a rat or the tail of a rat, and you, the bystander, you say you are neutral, it means you are on the side of the elephant. And therefore today we are talking about a process where the administrators of the process or those involved in the process are supposed to be on the side of the underprivileged. Some of us think that law should be part and parcel of the process of development of society, where you have got forces of justice aligned against the forces of privilege. And therefore, law should be on the side of social justice, hence the radical new bar. I don't know in which norms the radical new bar is steeped. I don't know whether it is for forces of privilege or forces of justice. If it is for the forces of justice, then you are with me. But if you are for the forces of privilege, I am not with you. And to that extent, let me now go to the topic of today, which is UNEB, National Council for Higher Education, and the Electoral Commission, guardians of democracy or enablers of privilege now. Are they enablers of privilege or social justice? It seems as if in Uganda we are suffering under what is called internalized oppression. Internalized oppression. There is an oppression in between, behind there, and I think institutions like UNEB are suffering from internalized oppression. To use the words of Justice Ogora, these three institutions are supposed to be temples of integrity. This time not justice, but integrity. And both. They are supposed to be temples of integrity and justice. Are they doing it? or because they are suffering from internalized oppression, they cannot speak out, they have no courage. I've just heard the previous speaker talking about the process is going through to have his case heard. And the moderator has just told us how one of the contenders was at UNEB begging, and the UNEB people under internalized oppression are hiding. But the same institutions are quick to nullify somebody's bid for elections or for candidature. So are they neutral? Are they just? Are they fair? What are they doing? You can see that the whole process is taking place under fear. That is what I am detecting. These institutions are under fear. So the atmosphere is not fair itself. You've had people of UNEB, UNEB, I think we have had. They have started speaking Chinese instead of writing straightforward English. I see, I am not responsible for the identity of this fellow. Then what were you doing? They went to you to arbitrate, and all of a sudden you are speaking a language we don't understand. Is it deliberate or is it fear? So I think those of you who are listening to me, you should now understand the challenges that the electoral process is facing. Even those who want to be free and who want to be fair and just are under fear. And they have no courage to say, no, let us stand for justice, let's stand for integrity, because this is our mandate. But you can see how they have started speaking Mandarin, or is it Chinese, a language that most of us do not understand. Now, these institutions, in my opinion, are supposed to be, the three institutions, are supposed to be mediators of conflicts. When conflicts come there, the three, whether UNEB or National Council or Electoral Commission, they are supposed to be fair, they are supposed to be mediators, they are supposed also to facilitate democracy. Because we are a young country, we are building democracy, we are a young democracy. So they should be enablers, as your title says, of democratic processes. And democracy is about justice, is about equality, is about inclusiveness, is about harmony, is about those things. So, are these institutions really living up to our expectations of being mediators of conflicts? Because you have two people or three who are contesting. Are they fair, or are they promoting justice that is selective? Is it a question of selective application of justice? I am afraid that is what it is. That somebody has got a problem with his index. I have heard on TV that somebody, is either a young man or he has problems with the index number. UNEB sometimes makes these mistakes. If you go to UNEB here in Ntida, you find a lineup of people every day, especially when there is going to the university or going to HSC, a line of people who are going there to authenticate their documents because UNEB made mistakes, either in the naming, in the names, missing a name, missing an index, or whatever. And when you go there, it takes a very short time, and they correct the mistake, they own up the mistake and correct it. These mistakes are always there. Just last week I was at Dira in the previous exercise of registration. They missed out my name. I went there and they checked. They said, now we are not going to charge you even because the error was here when we were writing the other identity card. And they corrected it. So why does it take people to come and demonstrate outside the UNEB offices in order for you to go and cross-check and correct the index? However, when that is taking time, they are very quick. UNEB and the Electoral Commission is very quick to nullify somebody's candidature within no time. The burden of proof should be on those who are alleging that I don't have this one, and they are trying. Nobody is saying that they shouldn't verify those documents. They should, because they are standing for integrity. But why are you dragging your feet? If you are under fear, if you have no courage to carry out your activities, your mandate, ship out. I think Ugandans are too polite. We should just go to those institutions and barricade them. How long does it take? Now we have computers. We have this digital. We are in a digital age. How long does it take you to verify the index number of somebody and say, no, we made a mistake, or it is you who made a mistake, and therefore go home? But you start hiding under your desks. You start running through the back doors and through the toilets instead of confronting the issue and say, your index, your number is wrong. So we have a problem with these institutions. They have failed their mandate of being neutral or being fair or and administering this exercise so that we have conflict resolution. And when somebody makes such a claim, try to understand. Don't be legalistic. Don't be too legalistic. Elections is a political exercise. And if they are also they want to be legalistic, why don't they now say, go to the courts of law? At times when you go there to the Electoral Commission, they say, you go to the courts of law. That's not our duty. Then at another time, they are the ones exactly nullifying you before you go to the courts of law. That means they are involved in selective application of justice. And that is not good for the country. It's not good for democracy. It is not good for peace. Promoters of integrity should be seen to be independent and not just be independent in the name, that independent Electoral Commission. I'm afraid to say the Electoral Commission and the commissioners have issues of integrity. Even the way they speak. In the last election exercise, when the candidates, presidential candidates, Amuriat and Chagulanyi, were molested on the day of nominations, the Electoral Commission chairperson, Jawakama Mujenyi, made a very rude joke. It was a shamble joke. When he was asked why he does not intervene because he's a chief election administrator, he said that he had not subscribed. Did you hear him? That I have not subscribed to this the MTN, not MTN, yeah, not MTN. His card had not yet been subscribed. He hadn't gone to one of these TV suppliers, whatever, to renew his subscription, and therefore he doesn't know what happened. Amuriat came too. Jabakama Mujenyi, without shoes, with a shirt torn, that was an indicator that he had been beaten. And the whole Electoral Commission, you don't send your staff to go and find out what exactly happened. And the only excuse you give is that you have not subscribed for the TV. Really? That was a rude joke. And in a position like the Electoral Commission chairman, in charge of administering elections in the country, which elections can go bad and lives and property are lost, you just go around with that joke that I have not subscribed for my TV, and therefore I don't know what happened to Amuriat when he came to you, half naked. And you think we take you seriously? We don't. Therefore, we are saying these institutions have the mandate to mediate this exercise, but they should do it in a fair way. And if they are fearing some powers, some hidden powers, some invisible powers, let them throw in their towel and say, we hereby resign. That's when we shall know that they have the backbone. So, finally, I want to look at how this exercise is going on. My colleagues have already talked about it. First of all, that money which you are supposed to pay, I agree with my previous speaker. Why should you charge so exorbitantly? If there is some small token money that you are supposed to pay, 20,000 is enough. But you pay 600,000 because you want to verify your documents. Those offices receive a budget vote from the government of Uganda. UNEB candidates pay to UNEB. Why on earth do you charge 600,000 for verification of documents? To me, that is not fair. It is like the other elephant of ours and the rat. The foot, it seems, is on the rat, and we are claiming to be neutral, that everybody after all is paying. But there are those who have got a lot of money, and democracy should not go to the highest bidders. Those who have got, who can pay more. So that's what. Electoral Commission, I doubted their neutrality even when there were presidential elections, but it is subject to debate. That one I'm not very assertive. The candidates were supposed to be given vehicles. You know, they were given pickups. The presidential candidates, yeah? And they went and they were registering from, what is that place? Bwebaja? Some place there. And they had bought, I don't know how many vehicles, maybe 15, maybe 18 pickups. But they brought there, at the nomination center, they brought only 8 vehicles. What a coincidence that you brought 8 and you nominated only 8. I want that coincidence to be explained. To me, it looks as if there is circumstantial evidence there that you had made up your mind to nominate only 8 and disqualify the rest. Why did they bring 8 and it happens that only 8 were nominated? And those candidates, the presidential candidates who were not nominated, have complained. They complained that why weren't they allowed to see how the exercise was going on there of verification of signatures. Because if you find that my signature had been used by somebody else, how do I know which one now used the signature first? Because I'm not there. I have submitted my forms. Maybe I am the first one to submit. But now somebody who submitted as number 5 or number 10, you start verifying him first. And then when you find me later, that the same signature appears, you say, it is my fault. I submitted first, the other one submitted next. How come that you are blaming me and not the other one? To avoid that one, they should have allowed people transparently to be present, their agents to be present in that exercise. That they were not present, you cannot convince anybody that you didn't do some games behind there. That is another case, I think, but anyway, the whole exercise in Uganda, is problematic. It started from the beginning. Every year, every election period, you are supposed to have electoral laws, new electoral laws, or reviewed laws, isn't it? They were never there. And everybody asked, they were asking the Minister of Constitutional Affairs every day. They raised it in the Parliament. When are we going to review the laws, the electoral laws? The government refused. The Electoral Commission washed its hands and said, that's not ours. And now we are in an exercise where we have no electoral laws. Charity here was talking about using these electronic gadgets without a law to streamline and regulate and pronounce how that election under that system is going to work. Now, when people go to court, they say those are trivialities, we shall not listen to them. But we are heading for a crisis, and I can see a decline of democracy. I hope it will not collapse completely. I can see a democracy collapsing. Those issues were raised in Tanzania. I know much about Tanzania because I studied from there. And I've been following things there. People were demanding for electoral reforms in Tanzania. CCM was saying, no, we don't have time. We shall see. We shall see. We shall see. After all, in Tanzania, we are stable. Now you see what is happening in Tanzania. This lady, the president, cannot go outside Tanzania almost now. Yesterday, I think EU stopped all financing to Tanzania. Why? Because CCM thought that they were smart. Every time we reform the laws? No. I don't know whether any of you here or those who are watching know that in Tanzania, after elections, you can't take the case to court. Nothing. That once the Electoral Commission declares its results, that's all. How can you carry out an election in these banana republics of ours and you say that the results can't be challenged in any court of law? How do you arrest your challengers and then you say election is going on? That was Tanzania, but it is also here, you can see. Once you see countries that do have political prisoners, you know that there is a problem. If you go to Europe, you don't have political prisoners. If you go to Canada or Australia, New Zealand, Japan, those functioning democracies, they don't have political prisoners. If you go to a country and you find there are political prisoners, I can assure you, conclude that there is a political problem that needs a political solution. Not election solution, not a legal solution, but a political solution. Political prisoners. Now in Uganda, this week, I think the president has offered amnesty to some prisoners. Some prisoners, but it didn't include political prisoners. I suspect they want to give room for more political prisoners. This circumstantial evidence, you know, in our language, in Runyangore, they say that when I lose my sheep, and then I find the feces of a hyena, of a particular hyena, I find fur in the feces of a certain hyena, I have the reasons to conclude that you, the hyena, ate my sheep. Why in the middle of an exercise, when the president is even busy, it is when he's releasing giving amnesty to some prisoners. I suspect they are giving room for political prisoners because they are arresting them every other day. Now, the moment you have political prisoners in an electoral exercise, then you know that there is something wrong and it needs to be solved politically and not be dismissed and avoided and claimed that, after all, what can they do? I've told you I've always been in Tanzania many times. Those Tanzanians would be looking down upon us and say, those are things that can happen in Uganda. You can't bring those things here. For us, we are stable. Now you see what has happened there. I was actually there last year, but about 12 months ago. In Butiama, we had gone at Nyerere's burial place, at his home, to commemorate his anniversary. I addressed them. I happened to be among the speakers, and I told them, I am told in Tanzania you have developed bad manners. You used to be a haven of peace in the region, but I'm told you are developing bad manners. I told them in the presence of the son of Nyerere, Madaraka Nyerere, and I saw him smiling. I told them that why you have been having peace is because you have been practicing justice. Without justice, you can't have peace. As Martin Luther King put it, that peace is not the absence of war or tension, it is the presence of justice. Without justice, there can't be peace. It doesn't matter whether you go to the church and the mosque and preach. As long as there is injustice, there will not be peace. Ultimately, to have sustainable peace, sustainable societies, you must have justice. The question I am asking as I conclude is this: are these institutions practicing justice? If they are not, then there is a problem. If they are not practicing justice, then there is a problem. When UNEB starts writing English that is not clear, we are not a disclaimer. We are not responsible for the one who took the case there wanted that person's document to be identified. Now you are saying we cannot identify them, and then you conclude by saying, Electoral Commission, go and do what you want. Electoral Commission referred the case to UNEB. UNEB is referring the case to Electoral Commission. Electoral Commission finally is going to take it to the courts, and the courts, they will say they will make the judgment in May next year. You know how these courts in these banana republics do? This Tindiri Rusi, is that his name, the candidate in Tanzania? He was put in just a few days to elections. The courts pronounced themselves to say he's innocent. Hey, but we are going for elections. I wanted to go for elections. Now you are pronouncing yourself today. Recently, the judges here, you are the lawyers, the new bar, the new bar, or whatever the case may be, radical new bar. There was a case. The people put a case. These candidates, I think this one is in Anita Mong's place. They took the case to the courts of law before nominations, and the judge said, "I'm going." Nominations was already on 21st and 22nd, I don't know, for parliamentary candidates. Yeah? Now, Judge Peter Kinobe, was he the president of this association, by the way? Yes. He said, I'm going to make my ruling on 27th. Come on. Is that the law you study in law schools? I want the case to be decided before nominations. And the judge, a lawyer, with a degree in law, an adult, former president of the Law Society, says, I'm going to make the ruling on 27th. What were you doing? On 27th, if they have nominated it, so what will I be doing? Surely, is that the Law Society that we are promoting, that is promoting justice in this country? Is that, it doesn't need law now, it needs common sense. That I want a ruling before nominations, and you are putting the judgment after nominations. Well, what kind of judgment is that? What kind of ruling is that? What kind of justice is that? I participated in the making of the Constitution, by the way, this 1995 Constitution, which has been defaced. As a researcher, I'm completing. As a researcher. And I think in that Constitution, they say, such a cases like that one of the political cases which need urgency, you are supposed to set aside the other issues and deal with this one because it is of public importance, because it can lead to the weakness of the integrity of the nation. That's what it says. It is there in that Constitution. So the judge now says, I will make my ruling on 27th when nominations will have ended on 22nd. Let me stop here because I'm not a lawyer.
Thank you so much, Professor. You have actually alluded to being a lawyer because you've triggered our minds. You've triggered our minds. You've left a lot to be desired. Your last question was, are these institutions practicing justice? Clearly, our answers might not necessarily be as would have been desired by the institutions, because also the justice that has not been done has been having them here to answer that very question. Because at the end of the day, it is about the institutions, and we happen to have none of the representatives here with us. And your definition, your presentation has been very succinct. It has been very elaborate to help us appreciate that civilization can take place without rule of law. And you're alluding to Desmond Tutu's statements, when the foot of the elephant is on the back of a rat and the bystanders imagine that it's neutral, then the rat will say you're unfair. And that is obvious, because the foot of an elephant will not, the rat will never understand. And for you to maybe appreciate, the Radical New Bar is actually a force of justice, because in our particular facets and tenets, while the Radical New Bar current council was campaigning, we were using, or they used, the tenets to do with democratization, demilitarization, decolonization, and digital transformation. The 4 Ds, Professor, is to show you that we came to bang the table and bring justice back on track. And for us, it goes without saying that when you come to us and speak to us in that regard, for us, we appreciate, and when you associate with us, we thank you so much. The internalized oppression that you have alluded to is visible for everybody to see. We know, as we said, that candidate Atwine could only get an answer within a day or two, because, as you've said, that is Article 137, as you said, purposes of justice being presented within the nearest of time. And that is what the framers intended, as we have always spoken in these spaces. These are safe spaces in which we say as it is. And Professor, you've not disappointed at any one time. We would like to continue thanking you. You have showed us that Chinese language is unacceptable in Uganda. When we write to you in English, please respond in English and respond clearly. You don't write Chinese and Mandarin when we want an answer of whether the person who is in question can easily be identified. And these institutions are supposed to be mediators of conflict, to facilitate democracy and processes of democracy. And clearly we are seeing so much that is being in question. The EC chairperson saying he hadn't subscribed to GoTV. GoTV is like 35,000 or 40,000 per month, and then you say you haven't subscribed and you don't know what is happening. Or even if you on DSTV, you have at least to pay a minimum of 60 or 110,000. But that is not an excuse. It's very lame as it comes, and we would like, of course, to condemn such kind of impunity coming from a person of that nature. He is a justice of the courts of law, and he is also, as you say, the mature man, and he knows that he's running the Electoral Commission. So time is of the essence. You cannot pretend to hide behind either being busy or your inability to afford subscription fees for TV viewing. Very, very unfortunate. Of course, the incidents of Tanzania are something that we also condemn, because they are sisters of ours just next door. And as you said, that aspect it kept coming, as you kept saying, because you spoke to them and you said you saw that it was coming to a decline and therefore an inevitable collapse. For the EU to start pulling funds back from them is already indicting to show that they are on a downward trend. We hope the prisoners or the amnesty that was offered is not to create room for political prisoners, because of course it also means that it was very intentional. And the circumstantial evidence of 8 pickups for 8 candidates leaves a lot to be desired. When they purchased 16 or 18 and then only 8 are offered. Thank you so much once again, Professor. We are so grateful. You have opened our minds and you've triggered us for you to know. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your presence. We appreciate your statements and your opinions, as you kept to say. It was in your opinion, but we also know that you're not an ordinary citizen. You're a very senior citizen who has always set the pace for us to reason. And also in your academia, you've helped so many of us who have been students of yours and those that are listening to at least shape our minds in as far as understanding what our country is about, especially in this very critical moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the presentations from the panelists. We would like to thank them in their different capacities. Of course, we said Advocate John Jet Tumwebaze was only here with us for a very short time. We thank him in his absence, and we know that he's listening in, of course, as he is doing his campaigns, but we wish him the best. But really, for the two that have been here physically, may the Lord bless you. Thank you so much for your efforts, and would like to delve into a session of question and answer to hear from the members and those that are physically present, the press, if any, to ask questions unto them so that we see if we can, hear from you and also have that engagement. Kindly feel free to raise your hand, identify yourself, either come to the front, identify yourself, or stand where you are, or sit, whichever you choose, and then your question can be answered. Thank you.
Okay, is it morning or afternoon? It's afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Dan Ayebale. I'm from NBS Television.
Yes, Dan, thank you.
I'm a journalist. I'm not a lawyer. So that is a disclaimer before I ask my question. I have seen a lot going on, especially with cancellation of nomination and people being sent out of races in the name of academic documents, and sometimes signatures. The issue about signatures has also been integral in this very process. And of course, it's a topic for another day, for how maybe incumbents have found it very easy to talk to maybe a few people behind doors and ask them to withdraw their signatures. And of course, we can assume that there is money that exchanges hands, and it's a done deal for the next 5 years. And for me, from a perspective of a non-quote-unquote legal person, I always wonder, especially this goes to Charity, who is a legal person here on the desk, and any other legal person in this room. I've always wondered, is that all? Is that all that can happen? That is it, and there's no redemption for this person who has been sent out of a race. Is that it? They have to wait for 5 years, or there are some other legal avenues that are available to them, and not the kind where the ruling is set in favor, or not the kind where they postpone everything until everything is taken over by events. What is available to these people who have been unfairly, in my opinion, sent out of, or maybe tricked out of races? Is there any way they can use legal instruments available? That's it from me.
Thank you so much, Dan. Any other questions? In the meantime, Ms. Charity, or of course to the legal person, right? Ms. Charity can take that on. The microphone before you can easily be activated. You may not have to come this way. There's a button just around there, the gray one. Kindly activate it and answer the question, if it's well.
Oh, I thought they would ask all the questions and proceed. It's one answer?
No, this one is from physical. The others are online. We shall keep bringing them.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. So Dan says he has observed cancellation of nominations premised on signatures and also people unfairly being kept out of the process. That's what I talked about, civic participation. And says, is it an end in itself? No. You see, legally, for a court case to proceed, you, the aggrieved party, must bring that suit to court. If it is a public interest litigation case, anybody else can bring it. But for somebody else to bring a appeal case or a public interest litigation case, it must have broad implications. Like now, with the issue of UNEB, the Radical New Back and decide to sue them on behalf of Jet Tumwebaze, to have a precedent as regards disclaimers after giving a certificate and then letting somebody continue into an electoral process. So for purposes of promoting the rule of law, the Radical New Back can go to court and say, no, this institution acted out of order, and they want court to pronounce itself. So it's not an end in itself that illegality should be held. Courts cannot promote illegality. And of course, there was the question of signatures. We saw signatures happening, yeah. Remiaga is a good example. NCHE Kubo came and said people who had signed for Kano Rashande were not exactly voters from Remiaga. They had come from another constituency. And now Electoral Commission is saying we are investigating to find out whether it's true or it's a lie. And so when the institution begins saying we are investigating to see it's true or a lie, if you read even the New Vision, the Monitor story today, thought process, I think legally that can also be taken on if the Electoral Commission does not convince us that what was done is credible. Electoral Commission can be sued in its own capacity for having let people who should not be on the register sign for particular candidates and not other candidates, and not being fair and not having a level playing field. Because the judges have been clear in all the court rulings that I referenced. They said the issues of a level playing field are critical to a credible election. Issues of voter education are credible to an electoral process. In fact, for me, the one that I want decolonization to take on immediately is the question of voter education. We have hardly had any voter education in this electoral cycle that we're going for. And yet the judges said that if there is no voter education, then the voters will hardly know how to participate, especially the new voter. So I want Electoral Commission to be sued because it is their mandate to carry out voter education and to accredit credible civil society organizations to carry out the voter education. So why haven't they done it? So it's not an end in itself to see these injustices being meted out on people, but the first place and the first call of law is that the aggrieved party must be willing to come to court and lodge a complaint. What happens, unfortunately, is many times after they have received money or they have been talked to, then they don't want to come to court. Then, of course, the case might not stand the test of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me?
Yes, please.
I wanted to make just a small follow-up on that
It's
question.
okay. It's okay,
The example
Professor.
you gave about, I think, is it National Council for Higher Education and the candidate Rwashande? We are talking about transparency. I don't know whether some of you have seen it in the papers, but for me, I have not seen it. We saw a certificate of Rwashande for having got a certificate of UPDF in 1982. Did you see it also in the media?
Yes, we did see it, Professor.
Yes, but the Electoral Commission and UNEB have not come up to clarify that we made a mistake or something like that, because there was no UPDF in 1982. There was no UPDF in 1982. UPDF came after 1995 Constitution.
Yes.
By then it was Uganda National Liberation Army.
Yes.
So if they mistook Uganda National Liberation Army with UPDF, they should at least come out and clarify. But they have kept quiet, and we in the public have remained with that impression that the National Council of Higher Education wrote a certificate, wrote a letter, a statement to UNEB to say that Rwashande had a certificate of UPDF before UPDF was formed.
Yeah.
So why doesn't UNEB and the Electoral Commission come out to make a statement, and they leave this issue hanging? It appears as if National Council also may have done it deliberately to wash themselves off and say he got it from UPDF when actually it was Uganda National Liberation Army.
Thank you so much for those intriguing insights for us to ask our questions more in heart, so as to see how to join the public and the general citizenry to answer these questions. Another question from Mr. Mudoy Anthony. Thank you so much for reaching out to us, Mr. Mudoy. To Ms. Charity, as a legal practitioner, what can be done at the next elections to prevent aspiring candidates from undergoing fraud at UNEB and NCHE? I'll read again. as a legal practitioner, what can be done at the next elections to prevent aspiring candidates from undergoing fraud at UNEB and NCHE? If you may, as you said, you'd want to have them running. Miss Ayevare Flavia, thank you once again. I don't know if that's a sister to Dan. We are not sure, but thank you so much, Miss Flavia, for reaching out and to us. Asks Miss Charity once again, how can UNEB ensure a level playing field? How can UNEB ensure a level playing field? Of course, this answer could have best been answered by a UNEB official, but we'll, as I say, take it in stride and deal with what we have. And of course, I want to believe we have tested and proven brains before us to give that question a very good answer. Then, what are the implications of such impunity as sin? What are the implications of such impunity as sin? I think these questions can also cut across to Professor because they are really open. What are the implications of such impunity? And maybe for Professor, I'll just add, with your experience, having witnessed a lot of incidences across the continent of Africa, you could help us answer that question, because of course implications, we're looking at very, very dire situations like what has happened in Tanzania. So yes, would like to listen in, and you could maybe answer those as I continue to gather them. Please keep them coming. They're not just coming in at once. We continue to receive them. Kindly go ahead with those 2 or 3 so that we could also gather others. Thank you so much, members. Kindly proceed, dear panelists.
Thank you, Robert. What was the name of the first person?
Mudoy Anthony.
So thank you, Anthony Mudoy, for the question that the next elections, what would they look like for fraud at UNEB and UNCHE? So the question does ask, do we just want to let this fraud be? And in my view, I think we should not let it be. We just had from Council Jet to telling us this microphone I'm about to drop it. It's interfering with the radical new bar.
We're sorry, we're digitally transformed. There's just a lot around you. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay. So one, if a disclaimer is given with a letter, that is a ground for a legal suit against the institution that gave a disclaimer and at the same time issued a letter. So UNEB should be held accountable and UNEB can be sued. And in my view, young lawyers should not just sit down. Jet Tumwebaze, they told you when he was still at campus, he took on a case in court to do with elections. So if you want to have a name and you've been sitting there and wondering, where do I start from because the lawyers are too many, come join other legal brains, go to court on a public interest litigation, and let's have this resolved. Because when the courts sit, number one, they'll be able to define for us, again, the mandate, which we already know, but the mandate of UNEB and the mandate of the National Council for Higher Education. They will be able to apportion liability in as far as credibility of elections is concerned. Because these things, we just seem to talk about them and we want to pretend we are holding credible elections when we are not living to the standards of credible elections. In the West, they've already achieved credible elections because they are not talking about academic qualifications in the first place. They have the academic qualifications by the time you're standing. But for us, we have people who have forged academic qualifications and then they are being supported by institutions and then perpetuating to participate in processes that the Electoral Commission is calling free, fair, and transparent. Are they? Are they? If they are not, let's go to court such that for once we have precedent. You see why we have precedents about all these issues, like now we have precedent on bribery, we have So many cases that have been decided on bribery. We know how to define bribery. We know when it happens. We know who is a victim. We know who is liable, because judges have defined these things for us. So this would be a very good case. My advice to you, Mudoi, is let's go to court. Get a few young lawyers together with Electoral Commission lawyers and we go to court. Second one, Ayebare Flavia, how can UNEB ensure a level playing field? Now, first and foremost, the mandate of UNEB, maybe let me go back here and try to remind UNEB of its own mandate. UNEB has rankings. UNEB has a system of rankings where it ranks academic qualifications to see if an academic qualification equals to a certificate, if an academic qualification equals to what is acceptable in Uganda's ranking systems. Those rankings were established by UNEB itself. So UNEB owes us a duty of care. That is where we start from, my dear Flavia. They owe us a duty of care, that they will ensure that whoever participates in the process, if they were asked to verify, they are the institution that is liable for unverified documents that end up allowing candidates who are not qualified to be in an electoral process to run in an electoral process. So we need to have 1-2 cases of these people, and then we proceed to court. I don't know why the Remiaga MP, former MP, Theodoros Sechkubo, decided to steer clear of this process. He's still an MP. His term is almost out. These ones are campaigning, so we are saying bye-bye to him. So Theodoro, I don't know why he wouldn't help us with such a case. It would be very good for him to go to court and get many people join into this case, and then we get the judges to pronounce themselves. This would be a very low-hanging fruit for the judges. You know, these days they're also looking for some low-hanging fruits, seeing that they fear the political cases, the ones that Professor Ndebesa said, we are an oppressed society, and the institutions themselves are oppressed, and they fear to speak loud. But since we have a radical new bar, Ayebare, I also want to encourage you to take on this. Join the Radical New Bar, and let's see how to get UNEB to understand what it means for them to have not leveled the playing field for candidates. The one on implications, Professor, they've said, take it on. Implications and impunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mudoi, you asked how can UNEB have a level playing field? Yes. Okay. But anyway, somebody asked about how can UNEB have a level playing field? Ayebare.
Yes.
He was here. Where has he gone?
No, this one, the one online. Yes.
Yes. There are very many things that they can do, but let me point out one of them. Why doesn't UNEB publish in the public media those equivalents of O level and A level, especially of A level? Because I think they are somewhere in the electoral laws and maybe in the constitution, I don't know, and acts. They say they must be talking about how a certificate can be equivalent to O level, A level. I think I want to guess that you must have done O level at least, and that course you have done must have lasted maybe more than 9 months. It's in the UNEB Act. So how many months? How many months? So we are not sure, but let them be published so that we know. Because somebody goes for a 2 months course and comes and said, I have completed the HSC, equivalent. For a 2 months course, why did they put these qualifications? They wanted to see that the individual has the capacity to appreciate the debate when he goes to parliament, isn't it? Now, if you go for a drills course in the field, in the bush, for 2 months, does that make you qualified enough to debate in Parliament? I think that is that was what they wanted. So let UNEB publish those equivalents so that we can see them very clearly. What are the implications? What are the implications of having these conflicts that don't seem to be having fair attention? I don't know how many of you have read a book. There is a whole book with a title, Democracy Kills. I think I used to have a copy. I don't know whether I have it somewhere. Democracy Kills. And what that author meant is that these competitions can lead to wars, can lead to tension, can lead to conflicts that may result into violent conflicts. Therefore, we have to be very sensitive. Those of us who are in certain responsible positions of government, the Electoral Commission, UNEB, National Council for Higher Education, and the courts should be sensitive about issues of elections and not just go around making bad jokes about them. And UNEB and National Council should quicken, if I can use that word, quicken the process of responding to inquiries by the Electoral Commission. And the Electoral Commission should equally do that, and the laws, the judges should equally do that. Because if you don't do that and you are overtaken by events, it is like the 1980 elections, some MPs, some candidates took the case to court in 1980 or thereabout. Some of their cases had not been judged until Ruto took over in 1985. Surely, is that justice, you lawyers? Justice must be seen to be done and must not be delayed. So let those institutions move very fast and not consider even trivial issues, because these are very big issues. So in my opinion, UNEB should respond in real time. And finally, to repeat myself again, democracy kills. It can kill democracy, or these exercises like elections can kill democracy, but it can kill people. It can kill nations. Elections are an existential threat to national integrity and security. Can I repeat that one?
Yes, please.
Elections can be an existential threat for the integrity of a nation and security, more so in banana republics.
Thank you so much. Professor Olupot Ivan is asking, what structural reforms would make UNEB a true guardian of democratic opportunity rather than a filter of privilege? What structural reforms would make UNEB, and maybe you can add Electoral Commission, a true guardian of democratic opportunity rather than a filter of privilege? That is from Olupot Ivan, and we want to thank you to continue and for all that you're doing with us and standing with us. And a question from Ndagire Precious. It reads, the 2021 election saw internet shutdowns and tally controversies. How does the EC rebuild trust after such incidents? That is Ndagire Precious. Thank you once again. She says the 2021 elections, which I believe Miss Charity also observed, saw internet shutdowns and tally controversies. How does the EC rebuild trust after such incidences? And one from Esayet Gloria. Thank you, Gloria. It's about technology and transparency. Should Uganda introduce an independent audit of elections before they are declared? Question, should Uganda introduce an independent audit of election results before they are declared? Thank you very much, Gloria. Please, if you don't mind, take those three and we can see how to proceed kindly. Thank you.
Okay, the first question is what structural reforms should UNEB and EC undertake as guardians rather than those that demote democracy? One of the structural reforms, and I will talk more on the side of EC, but one of the structural reforms that should happen to UNEB is, one, you should not ask for exorbitant fees. That is an urgent structural reform that is needed. You cannot be there and you just wake up and decide it is 300,000 to verify my certificate for O-level and 300,000 to verify my certificate for A-level. What is the premise? Where did you start? How did it come about? Secondly, that the Secretary of UNEB should realize that they work on behalf of Ugandans. Because if you look at our constitution, all of it is crafted on behalf of Ugandans. Every institution does exist to serve Ugandans. So even UNEB does exist to serve Ugandans in as far as academic qualifications are concerned. Those are key reforms for that institution. Now the Electoral Commission, that one has thousands of reforms that me as a person, number one, wants. The selection of electoral officials should be more transparent. It shouldn't be the president appointing them. We should have a more representative way of appointing electoral commissioners, such that the electoral commissioners do not feel that they are indebted to the president and to please the president, but rather know that they are there to serve all Ugandans. Now, most of the times you'll find that they have to toe a certain line, and sometimes they look like they are not in charge of the process. Then when they look like they're in charge of the process, they look like they're being unfair to other political players. Electoral to all. They're supposed to justice. And you've been told that where there is no justice, there is no peace. So for me, the first reform is the way electoral commissioners are selected, and then their term of office should only be the 7 years, nothing like extending those 7 years for another 7 years to make them 14. Because by the time you make them 14 years, somebody is tired of seeing injustice meted out by that team of commissioners. Commissioners should serve years, that's it, and leave. That is the second reform that I need of the Electoral Commission. The third one is that Electoral Commission should live to their billing of providing information to citizens during elections. I will tell you that some observers have been told you will not observe Kampala and Wakiso. All local observers almost do not have accreditation to observe Kampala and Wakiso. But why would you get blocked from observing Kampala and Wakiso? Okay? Because you see, for Kampala, one of the things that happened in Kampala is that they are changing the number of polling stations within Kampala. The reorganization of polling stations happened, yes, but it didn't end. And up to now, Electoral Commission is reorganizing polling stations within Kampala. That is the first thing which calls for us to be suspicious. Why? Where are they reorganizing polling stations within Kampala? If you will recall that in the past election, most of the results that were not announced were within Kampala and Mukono. Why? Because the Electoral Commission said goons came and distracted the electoral processes. What is the likelihood that the same thing could happen in the coming 2026 elections? And yet the observers will have been kept away from Wakiso and Kampala. Is anybody thinking like I'm thinking? Those are reforms that are required for the commission. They need to be more transparent. They need to be more people-centered, because elections are organized for citizens. And the right of citizens to vote is sacrosanct. It is revered. It is a right that is hinged on choosing a representative of your views. So it is a very important right, which I think that the Electoral Commission should not just be left to run at their whims. They should do it in consonance with what the citizens of Uganda want. Ndagire asks about the internet shutdown. I think that when those structure changes happen within the EC and the UNEB, then there will be guardians rather than people who are demoting or putting down democracy. Ndagire Gracia says internet shutdown happened in 2021 and there was tally controversy. I'll tell you that in Kenya, after this last election of Raila Odinga versus Ruto, there was a lot of tension. People were not sure who was going to be declared the winner. And even the electoral body was under the spotlight. They were not confident enough to announce, and they didn't know what was going to happen to the public. So what happened? They made sure every citizen could access the results from the polling station. So from the polling station where you voted from, you knew the results that had happened there. And if you wanted to go and pick all the results within the constituency or even the district, you were free to do that, because the results were displayed at the polling stations immediately they had been announced. There was nothing like, you give us 10 days, you give us 5 days, you give us 3 minutes, you give us 20 minutes. No, immediately they had been announced, they were published for any citizen who wanted to have their phone, take a picture and tally. Now in Uganda, they tally and keep away information from you and say, give us a week, give us 2 days, give us 3 days. And these things happen. And sometimes they give you block results coming from a particular region. Every time there is transmitting of results and results are given in block nature, then they cannot be trusted. Once results are not trusted, no matter what you do as Electoral Commission, even if you announce them, people will contest them in their hearts. They may not come out to protest. They may not pour out on the streets, but they will know that you cheated them. Now, what is important is to make the process as transparent as possible, such that they are also acceptable as much as possible. Why not follow that trend of where at the polling station I know my result and I can still see my result at the National Tally Center being reflected the same way it was at the polling station? That's one of the things that helped Kenya not to go to war. So, for me, a more transparent process for transmission of results, just like the judges ruled in 2016 and in 2006, I think this should be more transparent. Internet shutdown, that one, it has always happened, and I can almost bet that it's going to happen again in 2026. Why? The government will raise the question of security, and they will shut down the internet, because people will be posting different results from their polling stations. And the moment they begin to see results going up and certain people winning and people tallying for themselves, they will shut down the internet. Now, the internet is a human right as of 2020. And so it is a violation of human rights every time the internet is shut down. And I think that if the internet will be shut down again in 2026, this time we'll have 3 precedents on when government shut down internet, and we can take them on for violation of human rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those striking insights. We take them in good faith. Yes, Professor, please proceed.
Quickly. The callers have asked, or the respondents have asked very pertinent questions. Unfortunately, I'm afraid we don't have many answers. What structural reforms can be done on UNEB and the national and the EC? I think Charity has mentioned some, but in my opinion, there is no need for structural reforms per se, except the appointment of the Electoral Commission. The appointment of the Electoral Commission should be done on TV, like they do in Kenya. What I mean by TV is that the government advertises in the newspapers all over, and me and everybody who thinks can do that job, we apply. There is shortlisting. The candidates go and speak on TV. People ask questions about their integrity, because there are certain integrity issues about some members of EC. Secondly, some members, commissioners of EC, were heads of parties. If you are chairman of a party, how can you now be neutral in this case? So that is what I would say about EC. About UNEB and National Council, I think this is not a structural question. It is a question of intimidation. I know they are intimidated. They want the job. Those members know what they are doing, but they know that they can jeopardize their jobs if they write the right things. That's why they are hiding under their tables. Somebody is asking for a correction index, and you are hiding under your table. That means they are. So I don't know. So the reforms should be in the internalized operation. There is internalized operation. Finally, I want to say that the issues of elections are political issues, are more political issues than electoral issues. And as far as Uganda is concerned, the current government of Uganda is concerned, it is a liberation government. Somebody may say, so what? All post-colonial liberation governments in Africa, or liberation governments in Africa, be it Mozambique, be it Rwanda, Uganda, Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea, those post-election governments have got an entitlement mentality. They have an entitlement mentality. Whatever you want to say, they say we fought. And with that mentality, with that attitude, with that disposition, I don't see how liberal government is going to survive in such a countries. I heard Kahindo Tafire speaking. He was on video. He was speaking in Runyankwere in the natural. He was saying, "Munimba santa kuzaruwero nkarwana chaguranya kisha kaba president one." In other words, in Ruwero, there is no way people like Chaguranyi can be his president. Now, such an attitude of the people who are in power, and they are holding instruments of coercion, whether in Rwanda, whether in Uganda, whether in Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Mozambique, to a certain extent South Africa, we should be bracing for a showdown. The people have got an entitlement mentality, and elections is just a legitimizing exercise. These legal necessities, legalistic things we are talking about are just things for legitimating the systems that cannot allow somebody who was not with them in the bush. General Jim Muhwezi, when he was appearing before the Ogora Commission over, I think it was corruption or whatever the case may be, he faced him on, most of you I think were not yet born, or you are younger to understand or whatever. Jim has told a commissioner, Judge Ogora, where were you? Where were you when were you? And the Judge Ogora had no words to say. Where were you when we were in the bush? The same thing can be asked to whoever now is a candidate. They will say, where were you? And last night, President Museveni asked Chagulanyi, Nandara Mafwari, and Mugisha Muntu, what have you done for Uganda to deserve to be candidates? What have you done to deserve to be candidates? Then here we are talking about election laws, electoral commission, UNEB, whatever the case may be. How can somebody give electoral commission a statement to the effect that Rwashande had done a course under UPDF in 1982 when UPDF was formed in 1995? And UNEB keeps quiet. They don't issue a statement in the media to say maybe this was a mistake. National Council keeps quiet. You think National Council doesn't know? You think UNEB doesn't know what they are doing when they are hiding under the tables running away from an aspiring candidate? They know, but they have got a higher sense of survival. They want to survive. So the question is, how do I survive? Because I know that the powers be, if I write a statement contrary to what they think, I am in trouble, I can lose my job, and therefore that is the hidden power, that is the invisible power, that is the one that has instilled that internalized operation in our hearts, and we are going to act the way we act, even if there are structural reforms in the laws and institutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the answers. As you said, there were not so many, but they are very elaborate and deep. We are getting the last question from Aine Dorothy, who is asking, has NCHE stroke EC stroke UNEB been used as a political tool to eliminate certain candidates on academic grounds? Has, or maybe now have these institutions been used as a political tool to eliminate certain candidates on academic grounds? I think that is going to be our last question. We thank you, of course, for the continued questions. Our guests have also sat here for quite a while. We still thank you, but we shall beg to go with that and here get some parting shots from them, and then we can conclude with just one more agenda item. Thank you so much. Please proceed.
So I needs Uganda National Council for Education, Electoral Commission. They the two to eliminate on academic. You get a sense that yes, Electoral Commission has been playing a lot of politics on Ugandans' minds. And so for me, for the Electoral Commission, I do want to believe they've been used as a political tool to do so many things on behalf of the ruling government. I agree with you, Aine, that I think they are. The National Council for Higher Education has also not proved itself beyond reasonable doubt, because they have a standard and they should be able to publish, like a professor was saying, they should be able to publish the standard. That for us, if you have these qualifications, this is how they qualify to be A-level, or they do not qualify to be A-level, so that we all know what the standard is. But when they do not come out to set the standard clear and communicate it to the public, then they're being used as political tools. And then when they keep quiet, when injustice is meted out on people, and they do not come out again to explain how the injustice was, then they are a political tool. So I want to agree with you that indeed they've been used as political tools in this political dispensation to protect positions of the ones who the government supports.
Thank you so much. Yes, Professor. Yeah, but you can use the microphone. We're sorry about that.
Thank you for that question. You were almost, you are asking what we call a lead question. You know the answer, but you want us to comment. I've told you earlier on that there is a legitimization exercise. You can use elections for merely legitimizing an exercise, but note that you have an intrinsic essence value in the exercise. I think President Museveni, I am a student of Museveni, he says it clearly, replying to you lawyers. I think you have heard him talking about law. He did say, he used a metaphor. He said, politics is a bread, and law is like margarine. It is like blue band or chipori. You know? That law is chipori. All you need to do is to put it on the bread so that it can be easily palatable. But otherwise, the essence of the bread, the essence of the food is in the bread, not in the chipori, not in the blue band. In other words, these issues of law are just chipori. The essence is the politics behind the process, behind the exercise. And in the process, people can be used like this Electoral Commission, or for that matter, UNEB, and National Council for Higher Education. Poor them, what can they do? Under the circumstances when there are people who are entitled. When there are people who are entitled, then these issues of law are just a chipori, are just blue band that has been, the revolutionaries don't give out power like that. Have you heard of that statement?
Yes, we have.
Have you heard about it?
Yes, we have.
If you have not heard about it, continue going to UNEB to get results, and people will hide under the table. I thank you.
Thank you so much. We would like to get parting shots from the two panelists so that we can come to the close of their presentations. Just parting shots.
There is not much that I can say. I thought I had even concluded, but the question is, this is a message to all of us.
Yes, please.
I am glad about Law Society taking on some of these issues. At times you have pro bono in public interest litigation. I have heard them. You have tried your best. Continue trying. Don't give up, because we need a sustainable society. Sustainable societies must be civilized societies, and civilized societies must go according to the rule of law, so that people do not just act on their interests. So we need an accountable government, and the process continues. Let's continue talking. Don't give up. Don't give up. When we are talking, we are adding something. It's not quantifiable, but talking helps to build a situation and changing of attitudes and dispositions and the values until we have a critical mass where we can promote an exercise that is believed in, and after the elections, people think that their will has been reflected by the vote. As we stand now, we are not following exactly what should be done, but that doesn't mean that we should give up. But two, again, to repeat myself, elections is a political exercise. Fundamentally, elections is a political exercise, and we should look at the institutions that are in charge of the election exercise. Now we have co-opted UNEB and National Council, but ideally it should be Parliament to make the laws first, to reform the laws. Two, it should be appointment of Electoral Commission, which should not be, which should be biased, which should be neutral, sorry. And then three, we need to have a neutral policing of the exercise, security forces. Are they neutral today? You and me can answer that question. And four, we need adjudication. Now that is where you lawyers come in. Adjudication of the exercise. Is it fair that your former president decided to make a ruling 3 days after the exercise has ended? So the adjudicators of the exercise, the policers of the exercise, the administrators of the exercise, and those who make law for the exercise need to shape up so that we have a free and fair exercise. And we build a nation, because Uganda is not yet a nation. We build a strong state and a strong nation and a strong society, and we embark on development. Short of that, those who are dancing around in elections could end up crying, because, as somebody wrote, elections or democracy actually can kill. Democracy can kill if it is not handled in a just way. And finally, as King and I think Pope John Paul V or somebody say, peace is not the absence of tension and conflicts and war. Peace is the presence of justice. Without justice, you can have peace temporarily, but that peace is not sustainable. I end here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, Mom.
I will just say two things. One, that arbitrary arrests are illegal. They've been going on. They happened in Mbarara. They happened in Chiruhura. They happened in Arua. And there are arbitrary arrests that have been going on even in Kampala. The law does not recognize arbitrary arrests, and we must move to push back against arbitrary arrests. So the first place of call for ULS is document, document, and document all the people who have been arbitrarily arrested, and let's move quickly to help them. My second parting shot is that the Uganda Law Society should prepare to support people who will be unfairly arrested, and even those who will be unfairly arraigned in courts of law during this electoral process. I know that in 2021, if we did not have the support of Uganda Law Society, many people would have stayed behind bars. But while we were being arrested, the Uganda Law Society was walking from police cell to ask for people that were being arrested. So urgently, the Uganda Law Society needs to reconstitute themselves into a body that will be functioning with the human rights defenders to reach out for people who will be arrested for no reason. I thank you, I do submit, and I'm happy that we have this space to remain radical, to democratize, to decolonize, and to get on track. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our very, very, very own Charity, for those striking thoughts, insights, and elaborations of what you believe and what you've researched about. Thank you to the panelists. We want to take your parting shots as something to speak into. You've given us the blessing, and you've asked us not to give up on pro bono. As Professor has actually said, the rule of law needs or must be seen to be upheld, and so that we can hold the government and government departments in accountability, and also keep talking, because it's not quantifiable. We know it is not quantifiable, and the only solution is to continue to keep talking, such that we can change attitudes and also create that political buzz. Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much, Charity. And for you to know, maybe in regard to that pushing back from arbitrary arrests, we recently, I think a week ago, delivered a statement in regard to the arbitrary arrests in Mbarara and Chiruhura, and we are actually we've created a database of lawyers or advocates that are available to offer pro bono services, because we also heard that the arbitrary arrested individuals were eventually distributed to different prisons or detention centers across the country. So we recently, just last week, made this announcement and a clarion call to advocates. We have so far registered over 300 lawyers. The team is big, of course. There's over 6,000 lawyers in the country. We have registered so far 300, and we continue to register them just in case we shall need them. As you said, we did this before. We're still here, and we're not going to let go. And the contact person happens to be me, myself, Robert Jirua. I shared my telephone contact, 0782 969 239. I am in charge of receiving those volunteers, the advocates that are going to be supporting us in offering pro bono services for those that shall be arbitrarily arrested, but also those that are already arbitrarily arrested. We are in touch with the National Unity Platform legal team that is also feeding us with information and updates, so as to work in consonance in order to achieve justice. And as it has been said, we have to prepare to support these individuals as the radical new bar as we decolonize and demilitarize and democratize and digitally help to ensure access to justice, as well as help the government to deliver justice. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't say much. We are so elated and excited to have had this space with you all, especially those that are online. As I kept to say, our bigger audience is online. We thank those that are also physically present, our press friends, the civil society. Of course, we can't do without you, academia, and we're in the habit of dealing with all these different individuals. We want to thank you for the effort, the brick that you keep to lay, and associating with the Radical New Bar, the Uganda Law Society, under the blessing of Isaac Semakade, who, of course, we are aware of his predicament, and this is exactly what we're trying to fight against and ensure that justice and accountability are meted together. We have come to the close of this function and would like to thank you very, very much for being a part of it. And we, of course, look forward to having you again next Thursday with another very hot issue to be discussed with a very different panel of brains or legal minds or civil society or you name it, in as far as the individuals concerned are going to be hosted. We would like to just for 1 second remind us about the upcoming events of the Uganda Law Society. We have an East Africa Law Society conference that is going to be held in Ethiopia between the 26th and 29th of November. Members are called upon to get in touch with the Members Affairs and Professional Development Department for your bookings and further information. We are also going to participate in a run for justice that is organized by LASPNet in bid to start the construction of a legal aid house. This function is going to be a run that shall be conducted on the 29th of November, that is next Saturday. The venue and takeoff place is LDC grounds along Kagugube Road, and it will be hosted by the LDC, and we shall have the chief runner as Council Apollo Makubuya, David Impanga. David Impanga will be representing the Katikiro of Buganda, who will supposed to be the chief runner. And then also on that day, we shall have a sports gala for which there will be a lot of sports activities. We are calling upon members to get in touch with the Members Affairs and Professional Development Department in order to take part in these functions. Without further ado, we would like to thank you once again for the moment we have spent together. We are welcoming you all, of course, after this for a bite, which is normal procedure, and also thank the panelists who have given us a very, very, very incredible moment to share their insights and tackle matters that concern the citizenry, as well as give us awareness in order to be sure to be participatory in the upcoming elections. We pray that the Lord will bless you in all your endeavors, and pray a special blessing upon the participants and the panelists, the questions that came in, the panelists that have answered these questions. May the Lord bless you as you go back. May you continue to be covered by the Holy Spirit in order to continue the journey that you are taking. Thank you so much once again. For God and my country, Robert Benonjurua, the Rule of Law Officer in charge of litigation, I want to bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Take a picture, sorry. We normally take a picture over here for posterity purposes. The panelists, RNB, and then department head, Afra, will be with us, and we can release you to go forth.